Okay, so hopefully you've got a piece of string, a needle, 10 pieces of white paper, 1 piece of colored construction paper. And you start by taking all your paper and folding it in half. And don't fold large sections because then they don't fold right. 2 or 3 at a time is plenty. Those little sections of paper, when you get them all folded together, those little groups, they're called signatures. Back when documents were first becoming usable, if you look in like the old scriptures and even in old Egyptian, they talk about books. The term book back then meant record, and it was usually done on flat pieces of parchment or papyrus or something. It wasn't until about the 3rd century that there was a monk who was going through all these records, and they were all done on these flat parchments, and sometimes they were rolls, big long rolls that were stitched together. And he got really tired of that and said, nuts with this, I've got to figure out a better way to put this stuff together. So he started taking those old records called books and putting them together. He'd cut them apart and he'd stitch them together into what he called a codex. So the first codexes were just records that were kind of put together in book form. And it wasn't until about the 5th or 6th century that we actually got books bound together like we recognize them. And they called them books because they were records. So that's where the term book comes from. It's a record. So if you talk about books in the Bible, they're not thinking books like we normally think. So now what you want to do is you want to put holes in these so that you can stitch them together. And the easiest way I know how to do that is you take a pencil and a ruler, and you take one of those signatures, one of those little groupings, and you want to just make a mark down the center of one. And each page is about 9 inches, and so if you go to 4.5 inches and make a little mark, that's 4.5 inches there. And then if you come in 2.25 inches and 2.25 inches on either side, you should have 2.25 inches in between each mark. So you have 3 marks, 1, 2, 3. And truly, it doesn't matter how many marks you have in there as long as they're all even, because you want them to be strong. And then, once you've got those marks done, you just take your needle and put a little hole right down the middle of that gutter, right down the middle of that fold. That fold is called a gutter. If you ever work for a magazine, they talk about the gutters. That's the fold in the center. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these, I'm going to put them together, and as I do, fold them together, make sure that they're all even, and then I'm going to just drive a hole down through them. So they all have holes, and they're all even. It's hard to do them all together. That's why you want to do them in sections. And you want to make sure that the holes are right down the center of your gutter. Okay. I'll put that together for you. Okay, once you've got 3 holes all the way through, and they're all nice and even, then you start stitching. What you want to do is start from the outside and go in on one end. It doesn't matter which end you go through, because you're going to end up there anyway. So you go from the outside through to the inside, and you want to leave about 6 inches hanging off the back like that. What I do is I kind of pinch that with my finger, hold on to the paper and the string and everything, so you can pull it fairly tight. You don't want to really pull it too tight. Tear your paper if you do. So that's what you're getting. So it's just a serpentine. You go through it and back out and back through it. Okay, so you should have something like this. And then on the inside, once you're like this, you just go back through the center. Make sure it's nice and taut. And then you're going to just tie those off. And I always tie them off close to this, but you can tie them off in the center, however you want to do it. If you've got somebody that's kind, they can put their finger there, or you could do it yourself. I just kind of like pull them. I put my hands down on the paper on my desk, pull it nice and tight, and then just make sure that that's all tight as you pull it, so that your strings are tight, both on the inside and on the outside. And then this is hanging out the back side. You can cut that off, or I like to just put little knots in it and just leave it hanging out the back. And then that's it. So it should be on the inside. You've got 3 holes, and that goes together, and on the outside. You can decorate it, make it kind of fancy. You have a little sketchbook.